Let's talk more about that story, in particular protection for witnesses. We're joined tonight by the University of the Western Cape's Dalla Omar Institute's Dr. Jean Redpath. A very good evening to you, Doctor. Good to have your time. So what we're dealing with tonight here in Johannesburg is a case where two people, witnesses in a criminal matter, are shot dead on their way to court. We're reading that someone stepped out of a car and basically killed them, and it's very difficult to come to any other conclusion but to link their murders to the case.
Yes, certainly that does seem to be quite a logical assumption. Of course, there needs to be more evidence than the circumstantial situation of it happening in this sort of way. I do know that there have been increasingly flags raised about security, not inside court buildings, but around court buildings. In a survey that I've had sight of, which was done by Magistrate's Matter and which is going to be released later this year, magistrates particularly flagged lack of security around court buildings and the security around the court buildings, and in fact were concerned for their own safety. So it's not just witnesses, it's magistrates, prosecutors, who could also be targeted in this kind of situation.
And how good is South Africa at assessing the threat level for a witness? For example, this couple killed today in Johannesburg, one of them was in fact supposed to undergo cross-examination, but there they were, walking, which could lead you to another assumption. We must caveat that by saying we don't know the motive for the killing, but ultimately, if two people who are supposed to or are participating in a criminal trial are walking to court without guards, it leads you to believe that they may perhaps have been unsuspecting, or if they thought their lives were under threat, nothing was being done to protect them.
So one of the limitations of our witness protection program, which is actually housed within the National Prosecuting Authority, it's not housed within the police, is that witnesses who participate in the program literally have to change their identity and be relocated. So, you know, they have to leave their entire lives behind in order to access the full range of protection that the witness protection unit can give them. And if they do that, they tend to be very safe. And that is, the evidence shows that everybody who's gone through that level of witness protection has been safe. So I have no knowledge of whether this particular couple were or were not in the witness protection program. It seems on the face of it that if they were simply walking down the road in the way that they were, that they most probably were not. However, we don't know. Mm-hmm. But it is very difficult for people to leave behind their entire lives, especially as we see in this case, emanates from an incident which happened in 2018. We are now in 2023. So it's an exceptionally long time that someone will have to remain in witness protection. And sometimes one even has to remain in that situation beyond the court case because the threat persists, particularly when one is looking at gangs who have a personality of their own apart from the particular accused, which might be targeted.
And is there enough capacity, Dr. Redpath, to protect sufficient or provide sufficient protection to every witness who needs it?
So, as I indicated, if you're within the witness protection program and you're willing to give up your identity and your house and your life and everything, there does seem to be sufficient protection. The problem comes in that in-between situation where you're not willing to do that. You want to retain who you are and your life. And there seems to be where the problem lies in terms of how to protect those people and by whom. I mean, in this particular case, we had members of the police service who were the accused in the matter. And so this would seem to exclude members of the police protecting them because of obvious conflicts of interest. So it's a very fraught and interesting and difficult situation. And in fact, one of the concerns that the Dalla Omar Institute has been raising for a long time is the very few prosecutions we've seen for torture, for members of the police service who've been investigated by ICAT. Very few, and this was one of the few, which suggests that the evidence was possibly stronger than many other cases. And it's of great concern that it has taken this long for the case to come, and now that this sort of thing happens.
And just on that then, what are the implications potentially for people's willingness to participate as witnesses in the justice process?
Well, obviously, this will have very negative consequences. You know, even if we don't ever find out who was responsible, people will assume that it is related to the case. We saw a witness being shot outside a court in Cape Town not so long ago as well. This will most certainly have a chilling effect on people's willingness to testify in cases.
Dr. Jean Redpath, good to speak to you